Hi. I am so excited to see some of you. And it has been way too long. But I wanted to really just welcome those of you who are here and also say that this particular case, it struck me. It struck me really hard. And part of what I feel is that we're missing so much in communication and understanding this younger generation. You know, they do think differently than some of us that are a little bit older, more mature. And I think that one of the things that we have to do, and it's interesting because I was going to be doing a broadcast on, the boomers and those of us who are maybe almost boomer-ish, right? Like into that category, and how we treat the millennials and some of the younger folks. And I think this ties in really well because I think that we are in many ways applying old ideas to new communication. And I think that's what was missed in some ways in this case. So before I really get started, I want to make sure that I have, because I believe it or not, I mean, you all know me, right? So some of you know me, I have notes on it. And I took some notes because I want to make sure I hit the salient points. And I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about tonight and really hone in on is, first of all, well, before I even get there, I want to just send my sincere, heartfelt condolences to Gaby's family and yes, to Brian's family as well. This entire situation is a tragedy. And I think that when I look at something, when a case really gets me, okay, and it gets a lot of us, right? I mean, let's face it, this case is all over the news. And seriously, I think this is almost the first case we've seen that is like overshadowing anything about the president, whoever the president is, right? The last however many years. So what's nice is it's just so we're all polarized on one thing, and that is, this case has baffled us just like in some ways, just like the Watts case did early on. And I think that there are many things in both of those cases that struck me, and particularly as a woman. And what I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about the police stop in Moab, Utah. And I want to say I think their stop, and this is my opinion, I don't care what anybody else thinks in that sense, and maybe people agree or disagree, I think they were great. I think that the cops did the right thing. Now, if you bear with me on this, some of you know me and some of you know, like, I will make a point on this and how it, hey boo, you want to say hi to everybody? I guess not. He's like, no. The thing that I think is really important in this case is looking at, hi, okay, he's done sniffing, he's gone. Okay, is that when the police stopped Gaby and Brian, they had already had 911 calls. Now I want to back up to this and say, yeah, that's Gavin, Robin. I'll get to it in a second. I want to say hi to people in a minute. The thing that I want to start this with is that, we say so much. If you remember when I talked about the Watts case and when I've talked about other cases, and I think a lot of other people are starting to talk about this. Well, if you see something, you've got to say something. Well, people did. So bravo, right? We are actually improving. So there was more than one 911 call about this couple arguing on the street in front of the coffee shop, who shoved who, there are different stories. So this is a very interesting thing to say, that we're starting at a different baseline in a way, because the truth is that people are, I think that people are speaking up. Woo! And I think that's great. Now, here's the thing that I want to say about this, and then I'm going to pause and I'm going to say hi to some folks. And I will explain, Michelle, about Brian's family as well. I promise I'm going to get to that. There's a couple things that, and as we energetically look at this whole situation, the first thing that that really strikes me is the skill set that we are not giving this younger generation. You know, they really don't have the skills, not all, but many don't have the skills. And I think that they don't know what to do. And because Angela said, you know, she could have called her dad, you know, and I want to address that, because that's part of what I want to say, is that if you think about it, you know, if you're in a relationship and you know things are problematic and you know there's an issue, I don't know about you, but I only called in the big guns, meaning my dad, when I was like ready to admit to him that I was doing something wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so if you look at the way, when I say something wrong, I don't mean Gaby was wrong, but I mean it in terms of, you know, knowing that I'm not seeing something here and I need help. And I think we expect this younger generation to be so mature, you know. It's very difficult. So let's back up. Let me start from the beginning in terms of, I want to look at the police stop, because I went through specifically things that were said that I think were missed and that I think no one's talked about. And I think you guys are going to go, whoa, wait a minute, you're right. So I'm just going to go to the chat for 1 second, you guys, and I want to address some of the things that I see. Let's see. One man saw the boyfriend hitting her and slapping her. The police should not have left her with him. They should have arrested him. Now, I watched the entire, I don't know if you watched the 1 hour, 17 minutes of the police stop. And I did. I watched all of it and I took notes. And that information is not what was conveyed to the police. So what was conveyed to the police was actually different than that. Now we're hearing that somebody said he was slapping her. But the people that, okay, cool, Hunter did too. She was scared and crying. But when that was happening, the circumstance was that he took the keys, he locked her out of the van. She then tried to get into the van, had to crawl over him. Supposedly she was hitting at him and he grabbed her face to push her away. Now, I'm not saying any contact is okay, all right? Whoever hits who, it's not okay. But what I'm doing is I'm saying that it's very difficult here to say this person's wrong and this person's wrong. The tragedy is always that somebody's dead, all right? That's the most important thing right now. And I think Gaby told the truth as she knew it. And I think that, I think Brian did too in the moment. And I want to be very upfront about both of them, because the problem with controllers is they look so sincere. Have you ever noticed that? They're the most sincere people and they get away with, like, you know, they can lie about anything. And, you know, so here's the thing I want to say. Gaby, and I'm going to point this out to all of you, and I want to say hi to people in a minute. Okay, there was this really great moment when the cop turns to Gaby and she's sitting in there and he says, I need to ask you this. I need to ask you this, and I want you to think about this. I want you to be ready. And he says, why did you hit him? Were you trying to hurt him or cause harm? And she said, no. That was like, she came out right away. And he asked her again, he said, well, then why were you hitting him? He was driving an automobile. She was hitting him. And his story, Brian's story, was she kind of grabbed the wheel. Her story was, she said at first, she said, well, I kind of had the wheel. And then which was very soft. And then this cop said, what happened? And she said, well, I was slapping him and, you know, I was hitting him. So that's what she said. I was hitting him. Anyway, the two cops concluded something that I probably would have concluded too, but let me get to this. He said, what was your intent in hitting Brian? I agree with you, Hunter. I think the cops, oh no, I don't, wait. I think cops escalated the whole thing. I don't know. Let me get back to that in a second. You may be right. He said, what was your intent here? And she said, I said, I'm thinking to myself, what? I had to play it back like 4 times to hear what she was saying. And it was like this. She said, and I wrote it down. He said, hold on 1 second. He says, why were you hitting them? And she mumbled, and I kept, and finally he says, why were you hitting him? And then I heard it so clearly. She said, I was trying to get him to stop telling me to calm down. Think about that for a minute. He's saying, calm down. And she's going, stop telling me to calm down, right? This is the interaction in a moving vehicle, right? But I got to tell you, I can understand the crazy making of somebody telling you. It's kind of like when in my era, it was a guy going, you're hysterical. And then it would make me more hysterical. It's like, yes, she said I didn't hit him. But the thing is that when you looked at the scratches on him, it showed a different story. And that's what the cops came up with. Now, here's the thing. I don't want to blame Gaby in that sense. I really want to be clear. I understand why it can get to that level of like hysteria. And even, by the way, and I want to say, I forget what he said, but he said that she hit him with her cell phone. I don't think she intended to hit him. I think it was just like, stop, and when you're holding a phone, there can be, who knows what's going on the edge of the phone. I really feel though he did have, stuff on, like he did have marks on him. So yeah, exactly. I want to go to the chat for a minute, everybody, because I think it's great. Let's see. It says, Robin said this, and this is absolutely brilliant. I feel this. Don't ever tell a woman she's crazy unless you want to see her crazy. And now let's back up. Can you imagine a guy who's saying to you, well, why are you doing that? Or a guy who's hiding your ID so you can't go out with your friends. Now, these may be small things, right? But the truth is that, what came forward to me is, Gaby's like, you guys, we've looked at her, right? I feel like shades of Shanann in the sense that we've seen her live. We've seen her like on TV. She's so vivacious and she's darling and she's everything you'd want to be, right? And then we look at him and I'm going, I'm sorry to say this. I just, I'm thinking lump, I'm thinking he's a lump. I mean, he just seemed like, kind of like ineffective. Ineffective is a word I would want to use. Angela says, take my keys and see what I do. And there's another thing. There's a couple things in that I think we have to be super, super careful in this. And this is something that I saw on the news last night. I saw it on Nancy Grace. I kind of love her because she's just so outspoken. Thank you, Hunter Beta Male. Okay. Let's see, even if she had been arrested or him, they would have been out the next morning and this would still have happened. The police are not to blame. Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree, Michelle. So let's talk about that. So the reality is that when the cops assessed the situation, their assessment was they would have to arrest Gaby for abuse against Brian. And I only pulled off my glasses so I can't see for a minute because I know people get nuts. Now, here's the thing. Brian was the one with marks on him. The witnesses that they got information from on 911 was, they were having this altercation and she was hitting him. So something was going on, okay, where the cops can only assess what they see and what they're told, right? So the thing that I think goes off alarm bells, and I'm curious for those of the chicks, those of us who are chicks on the call, right? How many of you, like if a guy said, calm down, you're going, you get crazier, right? I can see why you would become so upset. I don't really I've not hit anybody like that. So I don't know, like slapping or it's just not in my frame of reference in terms of relationship stuff. And the reason I say that is because it's a different generation, right? It's a very different, and this is a thing, bear with me, everyone. We find people who we can play out our crap with. I'm just going to say that. And the truth is that I think that, and this was my deep assessment of it, was that, and I'm going to talk about his family in a minute, but as far as Gaby was concerned, I think Gaby was articulate. I think she was bright. I think she was someone who was, if for lack of a better word, she was on her way somewhere. Why would anyone pick somebody to hold them back? Because we all have our issues, right? So it really is getting his approval. She was trying to get his approval too. And I think the more he kept saying, and think about it, what was he doing on the trip? Nothing. He was just seeing the country in her van. Okay. So I was trying to understand what was his contribution. I didn't understand it. And then let's get into some of the, let's see. I don't agree with the physical abuse period. I have to say, I am not like, when I see, physical abuse, I'm kind of like, now here's the thing. Wendy just said this too. I wish she would have left that night when they put him up in the hotel, either gone back home or, onto Oregon. She could have done viral van life better without him. Yeah, I think we have to remember though that this is something that happens to a lot of young women, and I see this where they don't think they're capable enough. The first thing she said to the cops when they said, "Okay, you'll have the van for the night," she said, "Oh," and she was like really nervous. And he was like, "Are you okay?" She said, "Well, Brian does the driving. I get nervous driving the van." And I'm thinking, well, you're perfectly capable of it, right? And I think that, let's see, he was supposed to take the pictures. Okay, got it. Brian was never good enough for Gaby. I'm going to say this because I think that this goes back to something I talked about a long time ago, and some of you may relate to this. When a woman does not have that solid foundation internally, whatever it is, I don't care what it is. And believe me, hello, been there, done that. I have the t-shirt. But when a woman doesn't have that level of confidence, and we grow into it, many of us do, we find somebody who we think can do it for us because we can't do it. We're incapable of doing it. And the thing is that somebody just wrote, she should have been the one to go to the hotel. And I thought, well, the problem is she was considered the abuser, and they were going to write her up. And the one cop said to the other, "This is going to be your call. She's going to have a permanent stain on her record that for abuse, even if it never goes anywhere." And the thing is that I think that the emotional and verbal abuse can be so much more painful than anybody. Sometimes you feel like, gosh, I wish you'd just hit me so I'd have a bruise, so I could prove that you did something. And when I look at Gaby, and I think, this guy, I think was incapable of really being with her. Here's a situation where this girl, she liked him. They knew each other. They kind of got together. They'd met when they were younger. And now here's a question for you. How come they broke off their engagement and then went on the trip? See, there's a lot of things in here that I look at and think, something's not right. I was also very suspicious when the mother and father went and got his Mustang. I think that there's a lot of stuff that was going on here that, okay, let's get back to this. Yes, I love that. Hunter just said, so the cops were like, "Hey, did you want to hurt him?" She said, "No." And I agreed. So it sucks for her in this case because he should have taken the van as a man and given her the space. And you know what? I hate to be like sexist about that, but I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you, Hunter. And I think that, the minute the cops heard that, they should have said, "Oh, you could stay in the hotel." The problem is laws. Utah law was very clear on that they could not give shelter to the abuser. Because in this case, she was the abuser. So she had to go off. Then he would have to go to stay in the hotel, and the next morning walk over to the police station and sign the waiver that, "No, I'm not going to press charges." However, the older cop said to the more experienced cop said to the other, "I'm going to let you make the call on this. Do you want to write her up or not? You can separate them and then let them do what they do." So that was a big part of it. But I want to talk about tonight is something that is very different than what perhaps everybody has been talking about, which is the way we have learned to speak to people that are in difficult situations. And I think that the cops missed opportunities for things, not because they weren't good. I think they did an excellent job. I think the issue is that we have been trained as a society now. Think about it. Look how well people called in 911, right? They got those calls in, but also what we've been trained to do is to look at, and you guys have heard me say this, the buzzwords, domestic abuse. Okay, it's domestic abuse. They're in a van together. Okay, that's what we call it, right? And then we go, she hit him, but she didn't mean to hurt him. But wait a second, guys. What's underneath that, right? What's underneath that where it's what's going on? Why was she hitting him? And I'm going to tell you that what I heard, the deep resonance, and you guys tell me what you think. What I heard in a very deep level was when a woman says, stop telling, it's kind of like, stop telling me I'm hysterical, right? Because that's the old school. When a woman is saying things like that, and she even said to the cops, she said, well, I'm doing a blog and he just doesn't believe in me. It was something to that effect, okay? One thing I want to say about that is that there were a couple 911 calls made, and that's what made the cops come out after them. Now, we don't precisely know what was the dialogue in the car, in the van, except that Gaby told us she was telling him, stop telling me to, basically calm down. And here's the thing that would have shifted the whole meaning, right? Let's just shift this. If Brian or the cops had a skill of this, right? Because this is Chick 101, but a lot of people don't get this skill set. Not their fault. The cops are going by the law, and I agree with that. But I don't even think a therapist would have caught this, if I'm being honest. She said, I kept hitting him because I wanted to make him stop telling me to calm down. Now, what's the warning under that? The warning is she's screaming, I'm upset with you. You are not listening to me. You are not hearing what I need. Now, when someone says that, the appropriate thing for, anyone who is mature, right, is to say, hey, I know something's upsetting you. And we really shouldn't be driving. Let me pull over and let me listen to what's going on with you. Because you see, she was really screaming, hey, you're not listening to me. You're just telling me to calm down. But you see, it's like saying, could you just stop setting fire to the house? Like, I'm setting fire to the house to get you the hell out of it. I'm doing this for a reason. There is a reason that, that she was behaving that way. And you see, when we look at somebody like Brian, right, here's this dude, right? He's just kind of a dude. And we look at somebody like Brian, has he really been trained to say to a woman or to anyone, hey, what's really going on with you? Why would you be this upset? He isn't thinking, why would you be this upset? And why not? Because he does not have that training. He did not have that modeling. And so in a sense, he just wanted to stop being hysterical. If you look at what's kind of, going on in the home there, right? In his home, I mean, I can't imagine that mother didn't know more than she knew, but that's another conversation. But what I do want to say, yes, some of us would have caught it. And here's what I want to say. I don't know necessarily, again, remember I talk a lot about buzzwords and the idea of a narcissist. Look, I don't name one person who is not a narcissist. Crickets, because we all are. I mean, really, we're all on the scale, right? I mean, sometimes I'm more self-involved than I am other times. But here's the thing. I think that at 22, 23, Brian was young enough to learn a skill. There's no reason. He kept saying how much he loved her, but he wasn't listening to her. How can you love somebody you're not listening to? And I think if we also look at the thing of when people talk about, what's the other one? Oh gosh, there's so many things right now, right? You're on the scale. Asperger's, is it Asperger's? Asperger's. Everybody's on the scale. Really, we all have a certain amount of genes, but the genes meaning we all have something that's going to be a marker there. And I agree that there can be narcissistic traits, but you know what? That's going to show up in everybody. What we have to look at more importantly here is when he said something that really rocked me, which is, how, she said she was OCD. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, we are in this, hey, Blondie, good to see you. We are in this kind of time now when it's so easy to just put a label on something, pack it up and send it out. And you know what? We've got to stop mailing crap. We've got to start saying, hey, look how much we've improved. And I want to say this in all fairness to the police officers and the way, things are being handled. If we think about it, this generation, I'm getting truth bumps. People did speak up. The public is speaking up, guys. They had several 911 calls. I don't remember how many because I was looking for it. I know there were more than 3. Now, if you think about it, we can go back to Kitty Genovese in New York City, right? She was being stabbed to death. Not one person called the police. So if we look at like who we are today, if like we see something and it's not right and we stand up, I'm getting truth bumps. We're getting better, okay? And I think what we need to look at is that 21, 22, 23 today is not my father's generation, okay? At 23, he was already a war veteran. He jumped, for D-Day. He'd already, gone to war. He'd come back and he was tired, And I want to say that because that's important. I didn't interpret Brian's attitude that way. What I tried to do, because somebody said his main concern, memory keeper, his main concern seemed to be that his bald head would be sunburned. Now, I want to say, okay, that was true. He did say, hey, I'm bald. Can I go in the shade? And the cop said, no, sit right there. But here's the thing I want to say is that we also have to look at, we've improved, right? We've improved from, we're not going to ignore women when they say there's something wrong, which I have to really give kudos to the cops because the first thing they did, they sat her down, they put her in air conditioning, they gave her cool water, they put him on the hot curb and he said, hey, I'm kind of bald. Can I get into the shade? And I want to say that, we have come really far. So if we look at that as an improvement, and I want to say this is a huge thing for us, Oh my God, Brad, I can't believe you just said that because I was thinking the same thing. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Brad just said like Brian and Chris Swats. But I want to be very careful about this because what I want to say is that, and I've done the entire family history of Chris Watts. That is like, I have it like literally here. That was the next thing I'm going to start shooting. But one of the things, and that's mind blowing. One of the things I want to say is we have to look at just the facts right now in this moment. And the facts are, they both told us they were very anxious. Now you put 2 anxiety-ridden people in the room and you're either going to get a very clean house or somebody's going to hit somebody else. I mean, think about it. When you're like, oh, I know for me, it's like we always have to we always have to look at what people are telling us because you know what the big thing is? Most of the time, people will tell you everything you need to know about them the first time you meet them. You just do, So I'm going to take a look at this because I want to see what people are saying. And I want to, Leela just said Gaby was afraid of being left and him driving off, giving her the van would help with that, I would think. Yes, Leela, but he had the same fear. He said it also in the interview with the cops where he said, I was really afraid if I gave her the keys, she'd drive off and leave me. So what happens when 2 people's fears match one another? Well, it's a race to win. So no matter what you're doing, right? It's kind of like my anxiety is going to be more important than your anxiety in the moment. It's like, it's a one-upmanship, right? It's a competition and it's not necessarily a healthy one. So I think that's a big thing. Now, Alexandra just said he left her stranded before. Now, here's something to keep in mind with that. That's not information I had, right? So I didn't hear that. What I'm covering right now, to be honest, is that, is just that what I took from the police stop. And I really want to give kudos to the police because I think that they really used fabulous judgment. They asked the right questions. It's a very fine line, guys, between following the law and using humanity. If you really think about it, there's a big difference. And I really think that this is something where we really saw civilians called in, the police responded. I think separating them for the night was the right thing, but there's no one to give a citation to. If anything, it would have been Gaby who got the I think it was a B It was either an A or B, and I think it was a B because I forget, it wasn't an intended hit or something. But he was the one with marks. Now here's the funny thing. I always say this. Oh my God, Robin, I'm not built for it either. Robin just said I'm not built for van life. I'm like, I don't know. It looks really fun to me, but I think maybe I'm too old. But anyway, the thing is, you never notice how the person that's screaming the loudest is not the angriest one in the room necessarily. I can't tell you how many times I have been around people in my life where it's like, they're just like, well, you need to just calm down. And I'm like, stop trying to tell me to calm down, because the truth is what I have to say matters. And you see, what he's trained to do is just say, calm down, it's going to be okay, because he's talking like he's been spoken to, right? His mom, his dad probably said, hey, Brian, calm down, it's fine, it'll be okay, right? So that was his orders from his family. So what happens is that's what he does. He doesn't know how to say, like a mom saying, what, honey, you might not want to say that to a woman. You might want to say, hey, what's going on with you? And I think this is what people forget in this age of this generation. When I look at 20-year-olds, I've got to be honest, they think they're adults, but the truth is these are kids still. These are kids who have been given so much that they get out there and they're operating in kid rules. There's what is that thing of like, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I acted like a child, and I forget the whole thing, but it says, but when I was when I became an adult, I had to put away childish things. And there was a lot of childishness going on in this connection between the two of them. And I want to say Lady D's dies. He's telling her how to feel. Absolutely. That's what was going on. He was saying, and the biggest trigger, and for any guys listening, the biggest trigger you're going to give a woman is if you tell her how she feels. Or if you say, the other one that's great is when a guy says, hey, we've discussed this already. Maybe, but you see with women, we kind of see 70, it's like an accordion. You got this little flat thing and we go, oh, there's an accordion. And the guy goes, yeah, that's an accordion. And we've had that two guys, we've had that discussion, but we start to pull it out and we go, well, wait a minute. And they go, we've already had that talk, put it away. But you see, that's not how we operate. We operate through relationship. So if you really think about it, Gaby's, even her work, wanting to blog and wanting to share her experiences, that's the relationship. She is a person of relationships. So it is abusive what happened, but I really want to say it's also naivety on both parts. I'm going to just jump in here and I want to say, let's see, Blondie just said, you're right, Tori. I'm 24. Let's see what she said. And he's very mature. What did she say? They're the me generation. And I think if we look at it, thanks for saying that, Blondie. I think that, I agree with you, Linda, in a certain point. I'm gonna bring that up in a second. I think that what we're talking about here is that he is immature. And I think there's always a part of men that will always be immature. And that's kind of the fun too about that, but, and with women too, there's a part of us that'll always be like, I kind of want to climb that rock, or I want to climb that tree or whatever it is. That's the beauty of our lives, is that we can retain some of that. But we have to know better at a certain point. And that comes to a very important point that I want to bring up about the cops, because one of the things that they started doing that immediately when I was listening, one cop was talking about he and his wife and, how his, man, if I've got to, I always tell her, you got to take a bath because then you'll calm down. And I think that's the communication of two adults. She knows if she calms down by taking a bath, she can come back and he'll be able to hear her, right? But you see, younger people, they don't have that skill yet. And I want to acknowledge that. We really have done them a disservice. And it's so funny. I had a whole talk planned about, how I have, as a boomer, right, how I've been unfair to the following generations. And I think that's a very important thing that I will, James, that I think we need to address as well. So, the cops. So that's what I want to say. So the one cop was saying, yeah, my wife, this is how we communicate and I've learned. But here's the problem with what they were saying to these young people, all right? those cops are adults in their world, right? So if you're 21 and you're looking at a cop, I mean, look, we all know that a siren in the rearview mirror is a suggestion to pull over, right? It's like a pretty good idea that you pull over, right? So the minute you see that thing in the background, you go, uh-oh, right? And immediately your adrenaline's going, and all of a sudden, you're a different color in your face because it's like red and you're worried, and, they pull over and it's like, you get to the side and you're like, and they're like, please step out of the car. And you're like, The point I'm making is that not only is there authority there, but there's also, these are adults. These are the grown-ups, see? Everything, if you think about it, and bear with me, regardless of the issues that Brian has or that Gaby, God bless her, had, I miss her already. She's one of those people that I just think was so full of life. And I look at these two and I think they're looking at the cops as adults. And truth bumps, guys. And when you think about it, they were looking up to those cops. When the cops said to them, we have to keep you apart for the night, they both said, okay. They were children who were willing to listen to authority. And I think that as adults in our society, I think we're letting these kids down a little bit. And I'm not trying to blame anybody. I think we're all getting better. Brian's like, stop bullying me. Okay, well, how do I get, let's see. There we go. Okay. So I just blocked him. So I think the thing is that one of the things that is going to be super important in looking at this is that when the cops started giving an example of an adult life to these kids, they couldn't hear it. Think about what was going on with Gaby. See, as a woman, right, as a female, and I wanted to be in law enforcement 100 years ago. My father wouldn't let me, thank God, but because it was rough back then. I know I had to get rid of the Brian troll. Sorry about that. But what I want to say is that when the cops this one cop was saying, yeah, my wife does this, and I know she gets upset, and it's important to calm down. He was not relating to Gaby. What I would have said to Gaby, and think about it this way, as the women sitting here, one of the things you want to do is you want to look at it and go, what could somebody have said to me that would have helped me calm down? And I probably would have reached out and touched her wrist and said, honey, what's really going on? What is it that pain? I feel like something you want to say, because if somebody's telling you to calm down, but you feel like your life is on fire, what's up? What's up? And that's where girlfriends, we can talk to each other like that. And I think that's very important to look at, right? So, by the way, they have, and I just need to say this, Foxy Hippie just said it. The women, the two women that were in Wyoming, they have said there's no connection between these two crimes. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that they have not established anything here. So I think since my dad's a boomer, I'm gonna put this. It says, let's see, nope, yeah. Ooh, sorry. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Robin. Here it is. Humanimal. Here you are. Let's see. It's being, okay. Now here's the thing. I want to just for right now, I want to kind of say, rather than say this guy's this, like a misogynist or whatever. And those are identifiable words. What I want to say is that if the cop had said to her, when my 21-year-old sister was upset about X, my father would always say this. He was in a fatherly position. He was not an equal to this girl, nor was the same cop, who I just adore, by the way. I don't know who he is, but I think he handled himself very well. And I really, I know that there's people out there who are going to shame the guy, but I don't think so. I think he did a very good job. When he was in the car with Brian and he's talking to Brian like he's a bud, no. I know that's the way detectives get information from people, but this was no longer trying to get information from this guy. This was now, and I think there's two different types of interrogation and there's two different types of support. And I think that, and by the way, every state has sexist police officers. Somebody just said that, mere girl. Everybody has that. Everybody has sexist police officers. Everybody has great police officers. Everybody has like bozo police officers. You're going to find everything and anything. You are never going to have that perfect office with everybody great. We are hoping that it improves, and it has. And I have to say that. But when that cop was in the car with Brian. And this is where, and I think he did a great job. Again, I'll say that fifth time. He said, he started talking about his wife and how they were together 5 years. And, I know a lot about that cop. But what I felt was in that moment, man, it would have been great if he said, hey, so what is going on with you and your girl? Like, tell me more about that. Or, I think that would have been an opportunity to say, listen, I know I'm separating you guys for the night. And I want to make sure that as I do this, I'm going to really be asking, offering you the support you need. Is this enough support for you, Brian? Now, I know I'm saying it about Brian, but I'm also want to talk about her as well. But even saying that to Gaby, I don't feel that they got enough support, either one of them. I think just separating them, it's just exactly. So it's just separate, we're going to separate you and this person's the aggressor because the other one has cuts on them. But, I think that Gaby was the reactor. Because I think Gaby wanted something that wasn't available from this guy. It's kind of like squeezing a grapefruit and hoping you'll get orange juice. It's like there's nothing in there. Like what's inside that guy is not grapefruit juice. So you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. And I think what she needed was something that was not really, I don't even think she knew. She wanted some kind of support, but she didn't maybe really know. So let's take a look. Some of what you're saying is manspeak. Well, I just want to address this because I think it's great. P. Some of what you're saying is manspeak. Absolutely, we've characterized it as that. We've talked about it as that. But I think there's another piece to this, which is that we have to really, and I think the police have really been trained well in terms of like trying to get people to relate to them. But I think that the thing that's missing is really trying to understand and help the person more than that moment. Now, there's been a lot of talk about social workers, right? Social workers coming on calls, things like that. But I think this would have been an ideal opportunity if there was, some kind of house where younger people can go and talk about their issues. See, I say this because, and I want to be really fair about this also in that, I think that this is so, how can I say, people have been using the word systemic, right? This is systemic in our younger people because we haven't really taught them how to be adults. They just looked up to these cops and they were like, okay. And meanwhile, they're sent on their way to just be in a relationship. When I got to tell you something, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking she's pretty capable of doing what she's doing, right? But I'm looking at them and I'm thinking they're young, they're very young. So let's see. I want to see what, let's see. Sherry, good. It's, the juice bar that we're fighting outside of is the juice bar where Jordan and her wife worked before they went camping and got murdered. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it was, they did, the two women, the couple that was murdered, I think, forgive me if it was 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after, but the cops did say that they were separate incidents. So, but it is kind of, listen, remember like all of those crimes in Colorado, right? Here we're now having like a little bit of stuff going on where in Wyoming, in Utah. I know, what, Stephanie just said that that poor young woman was so upset. It was hard to watch that body cam footage because what I really felt from Gaby, and I think we all can agree on this. She was so sincere. She was very sincere. She was like, well, it's me, I did. And here's the thing. I don't feel she was blaming herself, but I think we really have gotten to the point where we don't really teach people what's responsibility and what becomes blame. I think there's a fine line between saying, I was a little bit upset. Okay. And I kind of I hit the guy and he pulled, so, but I don't think she was old enough to know what that was. And I think that this is an instance where, we really need to understand that these are young people that don't know how to behave. They don't understand how to handle their relationship. Let's see. What does that say? Hold on. Let's see. Pretty sure Mrs. Robinson isn't thrilled about her husband discussing her mental health in front of international audience. I don't know who that is. I'm so sorry. Let me see. So let's see. I just want to, says the Floridian. Okay. You can't be high maintenance and live in a van. Yeah. I have to tell y'all, I mean, the one time I went camping, I did a great Southwestern excursion with my best friend, and we had we rented a car, and my rule was we were going to go camping, right? And my rule was we had to stay in those like KOA ready-made places, where you had a tent, but it was like a mini house. And the other one was we had to come home when the car was full. Okay. So the first night I pulled out my electric blanket and my pillow, and she looked at me like I'd lost my mind. But it was minus, I think, a couple degrees that night. And boy, was it cozy. There was one plug and I had the electric blanket. So yeah, so I was a little bit high maintenance. Okay. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter if someone's high maintenance or not. Here's what matters is that they don't have the skills to really express what's going on. You see, I think what happens sometimes is we don't want to express what's going on because we're afraid. What are the two great fears? Not getting what we want and losing what we have. Well, Gaby clearly wasn't getting what she wanted. And she was also afraid of losing what she had. And it was the same way as well. And I think, Lexi, you really hit it. Lexi just said some men also rely on women to take care of them, especially financially. Now, that can go both ways. But the reason it's important here, and the reason we're really talking about a specific thing here, is that, when we look at this, she was taking much more of the lead. I mean, it just that's the thing. Let's see. The cop, should not be talking about his wife to anyone on his beat. Well, now I'd like to do a close-up of what's going on in that house tonight because it's all over the news. So I think there is the training, and P. Hayes just said that. I do think we need to look at the idea of training, and a training where it's like eliciting listen. And I know, Duty Ron probably knows better than anybody. I don't know if he's here tonight, but the idea of how many domestic calls do they get? Really being able to see what's going on and what that person's needs is a very different thing. I mean, I do feel that they asked her the letter of the law, but that was, off the chart. Let's see. Okay. And here's the thing, and I want to say this too. I don't know enough. And Linda just said, Gaby was dealing with a true narcissist. Well, we also have to look at like attracts like in some ways, right? So parts of us need that other person to make us whole. So, and I'm talking about only the sick parts, right? So we attract the parts of us that need to be healed. And we could see it in someone else and go, well, I'm not that. And usually we are that, but that's what we need to heal. So when we look at, Brian trying to destroy her, only somebody who is trying to destroy themselves would really kind of bring in somebody who's trying to destroy you and not see it. See, but here's the deal. She was too young to see it. I just need to say it. You don't see it when it's you. It's the old thing of like people used to say to me all the time, well, you're psychic. How come you didn't see this relationship was bad? I go, hello, I can't give myself a back rub, right? There should be an inquiry about how the cops, what does it say? Discounted. Okay. The 911 call, and also why they dismissed the part of the conversation about Brian put his hands on Gaby. No, they didn't. They actually talked about it, Humanimal. They what they did was they even said, they asked Brian several times, how was that, how was that part of it? How was that, they said the reports were you grabbed her or you were, what was it? You were pushing her. No, they said he grabbed her. And he said, yeah, I grabbed her here and I was trying to get her away from me because she was scratching at me. And so he kept saying that. Now, exactly. Hunter Moon just said this, and this is exactly the point I'm making. They do need each other, and then we grow out of it and heal. And that's the thing is that, you see, we always marry our parents. Sorry, kids. But here's the deal. It's like the hope is you're going to be with somebody who, once the smoke clears, that you're both mature enough to go, you know what, I'm acting like this guy's my mother. I'm not going to behave that way anymore. We have to have that maturity, and we're not teaching our young people that. And what does it say? Yes, they told her she was in the van alone. That's weird. You know what? I got to be honest. I just don't think Hunter said it. She just didn't have enough life experience, nor did he. And you know, I think that in all honesty, I think Gaby had really nice parents, you know, and I think she just didn't know, you know, the parents, you know, she's look at how mature Gaby seems. She's a nice kid. She was out there on her own, you know. Let's see. He killed her. Talk about keeping hands to yourself. I'm not sure what that means. Lee, what does that mean? Hi, Michelle. Okay, let's see. Yeah, on the 911 call, they said that Brian slapped her. Yes, they did. And another one said that she slapped him. So there was a lot of conflicting conversations. And, you know, I think the Brian needed to learn how not to lose his temper. Lexi just hit it. Okay, so here's the thing. I think Brian was completely controlled. And I'm going to, if you bear with me for a minute, I bet you until he possibly, hypothetically, snapped. I think he cracked. I think that, and here's the thing, when someone is a controller, what do you think happens when you say, I'm leaving you? I've had enough. What do you think's going to happen? I mean, seriously, you don't have to be like a phi beta beta theta data kappa, whatever, to see that it's not good. 99.9%. Oh yeah, Robin, you know, please. Lee Paul, please don't be disrespectful. Oh, hold on, Gaby. Oh, okay. Let's just give you a little timeout, okay, buddy? Because we don't talk like that in this on my channel. Okay. Thank you, Miranda. I did. Let's see. He's out for 5 minutes. If he comes back and can grow up, we can do it. Okay. Let's see. I think it is very sad, George, and I think that's the hardest part about this is that, you know, also for me discussing it with you guys, it is challenging because as I'm talking about it, I don't want to hurt the family. I mean, they're like, you know, these people are suffering, and I think it goes back to what I said a couple of years ago, and when I really felt deeply about Shanann Watts, is that, you know, I want us to never see a young woman who is articulate and bright and fabulous stay in a situation or allow herself to go out on the road with somebody like this where it is not safe. And, you know, I don't want to beat up the parents because I really want to be honest about this. I don't think Gaby's parents were aware of some of the dynamics, because I think if they were, you know, I think that they wouldn't have allowed it. I think they would have said, whoa, girl, let's talk about it. These are people that I thought were pretty advanced. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Robin just said a similar relationship. I can spot them a mile away. But you see, okay, hold on, Robin, you're going to take center stage here. And I want to say this. That was 23 years ago, right? So Gaby didn't have a chance because we haven't let young women know enough about, because Gaby knew to get away. She knew to go to her friend, you know, that friend who said, yeah, she'd come over when he was being, you know, a whatever. And I think we've got to look at this and go, you guys, you know, there's something here that, you know, goes back to what did we learn from that prior case? Well, what we learned is, when I say prior case, I'm really talking about the only one I really covered so heavily, which was the Watts one. But what did I learn? I learned that, man, psychopaths, like, they come in all shapes, sizes, colors, but I have to give people that benefit of the doubt until I see more. And I got to be honest. So here's what my vibe was. Yeah, I got that. Thanks, Foxy Hippie. I think one of the things that I want to say about this is that I said this the other night on Duty Ron's show, and he's just fabulous. And what I said was, I think the mother knew. I think the mother knew a lot. And Karen, oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Let's see. No, you did not. Wendy says she ran off with a band. Parent couldn't stop me. They were right. It was a terrible decision. But you know what? Thank you, Wendy. That's the point I'm making, is that, you know, generations before mine, and I'm a boomer, okay? I'm on the late side of boomer, but the generations before mine, they were like out working the fields. They were like working at 12. They were, you know, it doesn't, I don't think Gaby had kids. Did she, you guys? I didn't see any, you know? Anyway, I think that what I'm trying to say here is that, you know, this is a very tough time for Duty Ron. I knew you were coming on. Let's see. He says, I had a conference call. I'm here. Yes. Yes. DR is here in the house. We're talking about it. Just talking about you. So there you go. I know I can't be a boomer, but you know, hey, you know, good lighting, a little makeup. Woo! It's like anything's possible. And I think that, okay, here you go. So Gen X, what I want to say, and I've been looking at these generations more and more, guys, and I'm really excited because I just shot the opening for my another piece I'm doing, which is the history of the NYPD. And that is really, I took that on for a very specific reason. And that's why it ties in here to Gaby, is that I think that we have to know our history to understand how to help people today. And so what I was trying to say about the younger generation now is that, you know, those kids in the van, those cops were adults. You know, they're listening to the cops tell them adult stories about this guy and his wife. And the other one said, yeah, I divorced and, you know, this. And the thing is that those kids are looking at these cops as authority figures. And so what happens is that they don't necessarily relate to the information they're being given. They're going, yeah, they understand it, but they're not relating because, you know, in their world, it's like Gaby's like, yeah, but he doesn't listen to me. You're listening to your wife. You're, you know, but you see, the cop was saying something similar, but they were on different hierarchy. All right. You know, I used to tell people this, and I think this is very true. When I owned a recording studio, right? No matter what level you're at in your life, like, okay, Duty Ron's here, so I'm going to give him an example. I'll give an example using him. You know, where Duty Ron is, he can pick up the phone and pretty much call any detective, anybody who's at his rank, maybe a little higher. Because when you're at that level in your life, you can talk to those people. So when I owned a recording studio, I could call other studio owners anywhere in the world. In fact, I could pick up the phone and have meetings with them because I had that same status. So what happens when these two young people were stopped? The status was the cops are the authority figures, and they were, you know, and I thought they, like I said, I'm going to say it again, they did a great job. No, I don't think the cops meant any harm. I think they failed her and wound up gaslighting her. I actually don't think they, I don't think they gaslighted her. I think they didn't comprehend that when she said, I was hitting him because he was telling me to calm down. You know, and she went, you know, because it doesn't make sense to a guy. If I said, well, I was hitting him because he keeps telling me to calm down. It's like, that's like kind of crazy talk, Tori. But even she, right? Even Gaby was kind of going, oh, this is going to sound crazy. You could see it in her eyes. She was like going, uh-oh, you know, but because she said it so soft, I had to listen, like I said, about 4 or 5 times. The point I'm making in all of this is that when she said that, when she said to him, listen, you know, I have to, you know, I was hitting him because he kept telling me to calm down. That doesn't make sense, right? If I just take it off the top, I'd go, well, you know, we'll get you calm, we'll get you, you know, but here's the thing. At the end of the day, actually, I want to address that, P. Hayes, because I don't know that they, I want to be honest with you. I don't know that they patronized her. I think they patronized, I don't think they meant it, is what I'm trying to say. I think they catered to her. If you think about it, he was the one with the cuts. He was the victim in the situation, and they were trying to help her because obviously they both appeared as nice kids, but the cops had something that nobody else saw. They saw something because they saw something honest in Gaby, and that's something that, you know, but I don't think they could have reached in a little bit further and said, what was with the calming down? I mean, the cop kind of asked it, but I would have sat, you know, going a little further and going, what is it about him telling you that bothered you? And I think the bottom line is that Brian probably was invalidating everything she was feeling. And after a while, you know, it's kind of like the idea is that over time, I don't understand, P. Hayes. Look, quit defending their and your lack of training. I'm not sure what that means. So if you can clarify, marriage ex-wife makes sense, right? Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. And Okay. Lee, I'm a little bit kind of over you tonight. You're going to go in timeout again, just because I don't like that kind of talk on this feed. So, how did I? Sorry, my bad. All right, I couldn't block. I just had to block him. All right. So what I want to say in this dialogue is that the fact that they didn't know that deeper stuff isn't their fault. This was very, like, I thought they handled it very well. I think it's like, as women, as a woman, I can look at this and say, this younger generation, we're failing them. They don't know how to communicate. They do this all the time. They're not looking at one another. They're not understanding, like, if I had the two people sitting there, I'd say, now, boy, ask her why she's in upset. What's going on? And if you can sit still and hear what someone's saying, it can change the whole dynamic. But people don't want to hear what the other person's saying because they're afraid it will mean something about them. And I think the real problem we have is that we look at other people as an extension of ourselves. And that is really just not that's just not true. And I think that the people we're with don't necessarily define us. It defines what we need in that moment. And if it stays, and if it's good, let's see. Oh, I don't think hold on. I'm going to put this up because I think this is important. Hey, Happy Camper, good to see you. Thank you so much for the super chat. I keep forgetting. Hey, if you guys like this, like the I always forget how to do it. Subscribe, because I'm going to be doing some more stuff. I fully respect you and agree the cops did a good job, but I don't agree the cops played into Brian's hands. I don't think they did either. I maybe somebody else said that. If I did say that, I didn't mean it. So I think what happened was I just don't think that that traffic stop was going to tell us, it was going to make anything different, if that makes sense. I don't think we could have changed the fate from that traffic stop. I don't think there was anything better those cops could do. I think they did the best they could do. And I think it was just, if I look at it this way, I want to say that when we look at the real emotions, the real truth, it's that we just don't understand the different generations. And I think that's the reality. And Pihei says it was all our fault. We failed her. I think that we're failing a younger generation that doesn't know how to function in the world. And I don't know, it's because, it's very interesting, you guys. And I was going to do a whole talk about this, which may be better to be on a different feed. But I really felt, I had a very interesting talk because I'm in a group I meet with once a week. And there are people of all ages. And so I asked the people in the group, I asked not the baby boomers, I asked the millennials, right? I said, okay, anybody who's a millennial, why do you guys hate boomers so much? What is that? And they had some really cool things to say. And this is the hard part, you guys. It's so much about listening, right? Because if we listen to people, we can find out how to be better in any circumstance. So when I asked that question, one of them said, which I thought was great, one of them said, well, that generation was always telling us to go go to college, get a job, and look where it's landed us. And we didn't need that. And I was like, wow, that's true. The world has changed. And the other thing I noticed, and I fessed up on this, and I said, what I noticed recently, and y'all tell me what you think, but you know what? I noticed that boomers often play helpless. Like, I don't know how to do this. Can you show me? And I can't help but think, my dad was a World War II guy, right? So he came back and he wanted to just help. And so he took care of so much, right? So the point I'm making is that there was a helplessness that happens in an older generation. And I think between the boomers and the millennials, I think we have put down the millennials too much. I think they did an amazing job in many ways. They've created things that I never would have thought of in this lifetime. I think they've done so many amazing things. And I just want to say this as a shout out. If if we haven't told you this lately, we appreciate the younger generations. I have younger people working with me now, and God, I wouldn't know if I didn't have them. They're just insightful and they're helpful. And I think it really is that, when we look at somebody like Gaby, Gaby's somebody I would have hired in a minute, right? Because she's bright, she was articulate, she had so much going. And at that age, there's just the world is ahead of them. I love that she wanted to go cross country. The thing that I want to just say is that, why did she choose to go cross country after she broke off the engagement? And, their engagement was off, and she was calling him boyfriend and he was calling her fiance. So I just think that something tumbled this guy into the gutter. Okay. So I just, let's see. It's not about boomer versus millennial. No, that's not what I'm saying, P. Hayes. You're missing the point then. I think what I'm saying is that when I look at this, it's really about that younger generation. I don't think that we've given them some of the life tools that we had, because we didn't have, we didn't have gadgets. So we had to talk to each other. Oh, this is great. Michelle just said this. Thank you, Michelle. She just said, it's called Reclaiming Conversation. The book talks about how we're moving into a society where we no longer need to deal with the consequences of hurting each other. That is what I'm talking about. See, I think when we look at all this, we have to look at this from those clean eyes of, that the younger generation, no offense, because listen, we're handicapped, my generation anyway, with some of the learning curve of all of the technology, right? And there's people brilliant in every generation. And I want to be clear that I think that when I look at this young woman and I see what a wonderful person she was, and I'm going to get teared up. I just put that up so people could write down the title of that book. Thanks, Michelle. This was a wonderful young woman who really didn't deserve to be left in a park where they can't even fully identify her. Okay. That's why because her remains, she was not identifiable, or they would have said, oh, that's Gaby. They don't know 100%. I think that it's, let's see. I think I like what you said, Todd. Todd said, you're probably right, but are probably not understood by the responding officers. They just see injuries. And I think Todd said it best, because your girl, I want to make a point to that, which is that when the police see that this one person is injured, it wouldn't matter who that person was. That injured person becomes the victim, because Gaby did not have any scars on her. She didn't have, well, that we could see, right? But, in their estimation, what they were looking at, right? So I think we have to kind of look at it as, they saw what they were trained to see. Now, I think, again, I am only calling to the traffic stop, and I wanted to go over his mother. Let me just look at my notes really quick, because I want to just cover that. I don't understand. This is something else. I did not understand why Brian initially said he didn't have a phone, so he couldn't reach her, and then suddenly he had a phone. It's, let's see. She was clearly distraught. Oh, she was very distraught. Wendy, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at this and thinking to myself, well, I would be pretty freaking distraught if I'd been screaming at somebody to hear what I was saying, or to acknowledge that I'm upset about something instead of just ignoring me, Now, I'm not saying that, getting upset about mud in the car and railing at somebody else is the right thing to do. But I'm saying that we don't really know what her upset was, Let's see. I want to just say, okay. Humanimal just said Brian had a burner phone, so not one on a plan with lots of juice. Got it. That makes sense, because I was he said he didn't have a phone. And okay. So he talked about woofing, which, is going to a farm where, organic farm. And I was kind of they're going there. I don't know. She just didn't strike me as that person. She struck me as someone much more dynamic than that. So she could have gotten charged with a domestic on that call, which was very important. And let's see, how could they not have said, okay, with the parents. Okay, I want to get to the parents for 1 second. I know Gaby called her mom, right? Because she was on the phone at the police stop with her mom, and then she was like, hold on or I'll be back, you know. And I'll mention that in a second, Dawn. But one of the things that hit me was that I'm just thinking, I don't know what the dialogue was with the mother, but this is me. Like, I would have said, like, I know if I called my dad and I was crying and I was like, I'm at a police stop and, you know, I hit Brian, or, you know, I hit the guy, whatever. My dad would be like, where are you? I'm coming. I'm getting on the next plane. Like that would be like, you know, because he would want to get me out of that situation no matter what. Right now, I'm not saying that those parents are wrong. What I am saying is that whatever dialogue was going on between Gaby and her mother, there was not a complete dialogue. And I think that's a big thing to consider, is that, you know, what was that phone call? Because it didn't make any sense to me in that, you know, especially with that mother and that stepfather, they were caring people. I really want to say this. And again, God bless them, and I'm sorry for their loss. And I'm really talking about it more about like, hey, Nana, it really is something that we want to kind of discuss and look at, like, you know, what can we learn from this? Not what did someone do wrong, okay? And I think that, you know, there's so many things here that we can look at this and go, that person didn't do this. But I think it's really important to say, how would you feel if your kid right now, if your kid called you and said, I'm on a stop, I'm on the side of the road, I hit my boyfriend and they pulled me over and I don't know what's going on. Now, I think that how would you respond? I know for me, I'd be like, put me on with the police officer. Like, I would say right away, let me speak to the officer. And I would say to the officer, this would be me, I'm her mother. You know, what's going on? I want to be on the next plane. I'm coming to get my kid. What's up? You know what I mean? Like, there would be no two ways about it. And the reason I say this is because I don't know what Gaby was telling her mom. And you know this, guys, a woman who's abused sometimes hides it, right? She's not going to come out and go, oh, yeah, well, Brian was ignoring me and telling me I was a piece of crap or whatever, right? Thank you, Wendy. I would get her on a plane. Thank you. You see how structural, okay. All right. So Muir Girl said, I wish you would consider, I love you and your light. Thank you, Muir Girl. She said, I wish you would consider how structural violence has impacted young women. This is a bummer. Here's the problem with that kind of thinking, and bear with me, I'm not putting you down. Structural violence is like, it's just a big statement, right? What we have to look at is what really we can do about it. We know that it impacted her. We know it's a problem, but how long can we keep saying there's a problem without going, okay, let's discuss the events and then pull that apart and kind of decide what we want to do, you know? It's like, I think that that's very important, is that, and I want to just honor what you said, because I'm really appreciative that you said that, because I think that, you know, we get caught up in it's structural something, and it's like, okay, but that makes it bigger than us. It means we're helpless and we can't do anything. But when I say to you something like, you know, this young woman did not have the choices around her that I would have liked her to have. You know, I agree. Stephanie just said she was so independent, her family probably didn't know. And I don't think she knew to tell them. You know, and I do agree, Muir Girl, because I do think there is a point where we do have to listen to, you know, the idea of like, okay, you know, what was going on with this girl and what could we have done to shift it? Now, I want to say, based on what we saw there, she was treated like a princess. And by the way, he was not, and he was the victim in that situation. Now, I'm not trying to blame anybody. Please forgive me if it comes across that way. But in the cop's eyes, he was the victim because he got hit and he had scratches. She admitted she hit him. So these are things, even some of the calls and stuff like that. So let me just, before we go crazy on that, I want to say that She was put in the car. She was given water. She was given air conditioning. He was sitting in the sun, and all he asked for was shade. And they said, no, you can just sit right there. So what I'm trying to say to you is that, I think that people are trying to do better. Okay. I do think the cops are trying to do better. And I do feel that there's progress. We're not going to be getting perfect, right? So we're not going to get this is great. We're going to get, what? This is a problem and we have to address it. And how do we shift it? And Chanel Wing said the cop should have arrested her. He had the keys to her home. Oh, wait, no, here. Oh, should have arrested her. None of this would have been happening right now. Based on the facts of the scene, she should have went to jail. Well, the problem is, Chanel, even if she went to jail, right, even if they had taken her in, which wasn't the protocol for that anyway, because it was a B, not an A, or felony, or not felony, I forget whatever the thing was, but a domestic of A or B or whatever. But anyway, she, in that sense, was the guilty party. So the reality is that he was the one who was going to get the hotel room. The problem is that when you look at the situation at face value, right, you could see that the way they handled it was the way you had to handle it. Now, obviously, the thing I am talking about is the some of the assault and the violence against women. But I also think that we as women, we have to be a little bit responsible in terms of like seeing these things happen. Now, when I say that, do we miss it? Yeah. Have I missed it? Yeah. But I'm here to talk about it. Are you here to talk about it? Yes. We want to make sure that the things that happen, it's like, I'm sorry, Angela had the line of the night. I'm sorry, I'm putting that up. It's just better to get a big dog. I'm sorry. Right on. That's my favorite of the night. Oh my God. Okay. So a couple things in here. Let's see. I think the patrolman, what did she say here? What Stephanie said. I think the patrolman did a good job diffusing the issue between them, in my opinion. I agree, Stephanie, sorry. I agree. I think they did do a good job. And I do think that, there's no way, even those of us who see things, there's no way you could have seen, like the foreseen the issue coming at the end. The only thing I noticed very deeply was that she was not being listened to by this guy. And I don't care what you say, when a woman feels that a guy isn't listening to her, you can pretty much guarantee there's going to be fireworks. Okay. So let's talk about the prayers for Brian's family too, because somebody said, oh, they're praying for Brian's family. And, the way I feel about this is that there's no winners. And I feel like what I feel is kind of like, is like he's lawyering up. Well, and why did he lawyer up? Well, I can only tell you that probably he had come home and said, I left her. Now, why did he come back with her van is the biggest question of the air, because we know if he has the van, she doesn't. So where was she? And that really got me. Let's see. And let's see. I would like to hear the radio traffic. Yeah, that would be great. Seattle True Crime just said, I'd like to hear the radio traffic of how the call was dispatched, the info given to the cops who responded. Good call. That's a good one. Yeah. You know what? I am so sure that the officers are like going through that in their minds again and again and again. And honestly, I just think in some ways that it's torturing them more than we can say. And that's what I feel. Melinda, I feel the same way. They lawyered up. They had to know something was going on. And I think that, honestly, I think the mother knew. I think she was told, thanks, Jen. And I think, I think that's something that I mentioned on Duty Ron's channel the other night. I was like, that mother knows something. And I think she knew. And by the way, isn't it a little suspicious that, I don't know about you, but if I'm a mom, right, and my son leaves his Mustang at this, I don't know, whatever it is, a swamp walking area, whatever the thing is, and the Mustang is there with a note that says, please move your car. I don't know. Like, I don't know that I would just go, oh, I'll leave it another day and see what happens. I would be very concerned unless they wanted to give him a head start in some way. That's, Seattle, what did it say? I assure you that the cops are going to feel traumatized. I want to put this up because I agree with you. these cops are going to be feeling so traumatized, they'll go over this in their minds for the rest of their lives. I agree with you. And I think that I really want to acknowledge how human they were, how kind they were to her. And listen, guys, they're there to break up real violence that's going on. Okay. I'm not saying this wasn't violent, but I'm saying that like they're used to that high level of, adrenaline. Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing. Humanimal just said, I hope they have good counseling and, let's see, I'm 100%. I almost feel like that's borderline criminal. Yeah. Which you mean with the mother? I thought so too. Let's see. Yes. How kind they were to her when she had admitted abusing him. Yeah. And you know what? I think that I agree with you. Is it Channel or Chanel? I can't tell. But anyway, I think it's Channel. Channel Wing. I agree. And I tell you, I think that the cops were very kind to her because there's humanity in the fact that she was saying, because when the cops said that, why were you hitting him? Why were you hitting him? Because he was telling me to calm down. And even she kind of cracked a smile. Let's see. In my training experience, Brian was going to try running from the police, which explains why he sped up. He probably got yeah, I don't know. Like you may be right. A modern prosecutor just said, he was speeding up. I don't know. I kind of don't. I don't know because I know sometimes, like if somebody's fighting you, your foot can go onto and I've had that happen. I've been in a car like that. So, your foot goes on the accelerator because you're trying to fight this other person off. So, where's the humanity for any other abuser? It was because she was cute and looked innocent. Well, I think that, and this is an important one. I thought the same thing. I have to admit that with everything going on in the last, that's not what I wanted, in the last few years, I don't think she forced his foot. I think she was hitting him and he leaned on it. It's kind of like if you think about it, imagine you're sitting in the car and you're driving and someone's hitting you, right? And you're kind of like, naturally, you may even brace yourself and like push. So it could be that you push the accelerator. Anything can happen. I don't know. Let's see. Bumblebee said, I would have written him up. Man, Bumblebee, I'm glad you're out there. I would have written him up for everything I could find. Encourage her to call home. She did call home. She was on with her mother, but we don't know what Gaby told her mother. And I want to be fair to the parents because this is a very hard time for them. We do not know how much information they had. Well, actually, Seattle True Crime, I want to say to you that that's not what either one of them said. He was not raging. She was very clear. Gaby said he was not raging. And he was just saying, I was trying to, he said she grabbed the wheel, right? And that's why they went up on the curb. She said, if you listen closely to and this was completely independent. They weren't together. But if you listen closely, and I listened to the whole police stop, he says, the cop says, so what happened? Why did he go up on the curb? And she says, well, I grabbed the wheel. And then he says, so why what was happening? And she said, well, I was hitting him. So you can hear it if you play it back. And it's like, oh, I get it. Let's see. I don't know what Stephanie said. Maybe they're just being gentlemen. Yeah, you know what though, Stephanie? I want to say I do think they were being gentlemen. I know somebody else said, give me a break. But, give her a break. Yeah, you give her a break too, because I think here that what you want to do is you want to look at the fact that a gentleman, in this case, I think we can reword that, if you will, to say they're trying to help the person who's typically the victim and not have it be old boys network, which is what it was for years, right? The woman would get hit and the guy would be like, your husband's okay. He just needs to sleep it off. Meanwhile, she's got a black eye, So, we have to look at how they were trying to help her. So I think, Channel, I think that, I think there is something to that. And she's calling it gentleman, but I also think it's something along the lines of, trying to not ignore a woman's feelings, which ironically is exactly what everybody was doing. So it goes back to, and I'm sure she hung up by now because she's probably like, you're not saying what I want you to say. But the point is that you see the issue here is that the whole issue is nobody really understood what Gaby was trying to express, and even what she wanted to do with her blog and what she wanted to do with her life. You know, I think she felt she was screaming into a void, you know, like this, just like, you know, like an empty space out there. And why did I say, you know, praying for Brian's family? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the truth is that I don't believe they got up in the morning and said, let's figure out how this girl can die. I think they made some, in my opinion, I think they may have made some very poor choices. And, you know, the thing is somebody said it earlier, it smacks for me of like a little bit of that Cindy Watts kind of thing of like, oh my gosh, you know, we forgive you. And it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, we don't even know what happened yet. Like we don't, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, did she know? I think she did know. I do feel sorry for her, Gabby. Yeah, I agree. It's called Hidden True Crime. What does that mean, Cheryl? The hidden true crime. What's that? I need to know. Let's see. I promise you they had little to no knowledge of the dynamic between. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to put this up because I think this is true. I promise you they had little to no knowledge of the dynamic between them. I agree 100% because I do believe, and think about this, when I watch those parents, I don't know about the boy's parents because I didn't see them, but the boy's sister even, well, I don't know what's going on. It just seemed really odd to me. You know, he was a little bit too protected. Yes, I agree with you. Oh my gosh, I agree with you. The sister knew the dynamic. Okay, at the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, taught me to listen to body language over verbal. The guy was terrified and Brian was acting cool. I didn't get the terror from her. Now, maybe I didn't get that at all. I wasn't, I don't know, the parents, maybe. Yeah, well, hey, like that. I don't know that I didn't see that in her body language. What I saw was this is just me. My observation of Gabby was that she was so worked up because nobody was listening to her feelings. You see, no, and even as she said her feelings, like even when she said, he was telling me to, you know, calm down. Why'd you hit him? I was telling me to calm down. And then she smiled. I keep bringing that up because it's kind of, she knew that wasn't like going to sound good, right? But she said it anyway, but because she didn't really know what she needed. And so I think the whole thing is that, you know, I don't know, it just sounds bizarre. So I think that I didn't get that she was terrified. I got that she was angry. And I'm going to tell you something. Gabby seemed pretty freaking smart to me, and she was pretty sharp. I think she felt she could hold her own. I really do. I think this is what happens when you have a very intelligent woman. They think, you know what? I'll change him. He'll get his stuff together. You know, and let's see. And Brian was acting cool. I don't know. I think he was the geekiest geek. I didn't see any cool. I think he was trying to like be nice to the cops because they were authority figures. I think they were both afraid of being pulled over by the cops. I just don't think this was an everyday occurrence for these two. And I agree with you, Clear Sailing. The sister knew. I think the sister knew that dynamic, and I think she would have said more. I'm going to bring Duran in. Come on in. Hey,
Tori, how are you?
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
Just let me know that you can hear me okay, because I'm using an earbud.
Yeah, we totally can hear you. Everybody, welcome, Duran. Yay.
Hi, guys. So I want to just add two things because I only have like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to wind up with you anyway, but go ahead.
Yeah, so you guys you're speaking about the Moab Police officers that responded. Don't forget, they responded with 2 Park Police Department personnel, and then a couple more responded to back them up. Mm-hmm. At the end of that interaction, if you noticed, and I know you pay attention, they shook hands with them and introduced themselves. So they didn't even know anything about each other. They've never worked together. They weren't able to feed off of each other. And I think that they definitely did miss that she was battered woman syndrome and that she was going through what she went through before they came on to that interaction. Now, the 911 operator, we don't know if he gave that information to him, but that will come out because of police transparency. They're going to release that 911 dispatch in due time, and we're going to find out whether they knew about it or not. I know here in New York City, we would separate the two like they did, and we would get a female officer, which they did. They had a female officer there, but it seemed like the male officers took most of the most of the conversation, at least that what we heard from the body cam, because the
Yeah,
female
just
officers.
on that. We only saw the body cam. Right, exactly.
Right. But there was two female officers from the Parks Department that were at the back door with her, talking to her for a while, but we didn't hear any of what they talked about. But if I had the information as a police officer of dispatch that she was being slapped in the face, I would have asked her many different times in many different ways, hey, is he beating you? Is he, is he doing something to you that you're trying to hide from me? And I've had many domestic violence calls where the women will hide and they'll take the blame because they're afraid. And that may very, very well may have been the situation here. But we can't Monday morning quarterback this thing because it's over with already. It's done. I just want to say to the people who are putting in the chat, all of their feelings. I get it. Because I've gone through all of those scenarios myself. These officers are going to have to live with this decision for the rest of their lives. Just like you talked about, therapy, guilt of not doing more. But I want to just address one thing about the summons with the speeding. We don't know if they gave them a summons or not. We don't know. And that will come out if in fact they did. But summonses are discretionary. It's a discretionary tool.
Exactly.
It's not where you break the law and there's discretionary. They don't have discretion when you break the law. Okay. It was a Class A misdemeanor. Assault.
They were talking about though.
Right. It could be a Class A or a Class B. It depends on the state. So that'll vary from state to state. There was visible injuries to him, and she admitted that she hit him with the cell phone. So it would have probably made it a higher, probably a Class B misdemeanor. It's only punishable by jail overnight. So those two, even if they both got arrested, say it was a cross complaint, what happens traditionally is if we go to arrest, say, the female, she'll say, well, he hit me first. And it will happen as we're cuffing them. And there'll be a cross complaint. So most of the times both will go, will intend to arrest one, but will wind up having a cross complaint. In this situation, a lot of people are saying, well, if they would have arrested him, she would have been still alive. They would have been back out, both of them, in the morning, and they would have been back together in that van because that's where they were living, in the van. So that wouldn't have taken care of the issue. So again, there's so much that we look at after the fact, and there's so much that we say should have, could have, would have. And in these police officers, what's given to them and what's put in front of them, they have to react, not knowing the whole history. They have to just go. They got to go by based on what they are given.
This is what I said early on too, because I talked about that, and I think that's very important that we all understand it. That I said that basically it's kind of like giving short order Kirk. They're given an order, and that's what they do. They only know what's on that order, and until they get there and they're on the scene, that's when I said it started to become human, because they started to look at the situation. And I honestly feel that was a really well handled stop. I watched the whole thing, and I felt like truth bumps. As I said, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt like I saw a lot of new thinking, a lot of their training was really coming out. I thought they were very kind, and in fairness to the cops, I think the one cop said to the other, "It's up to you." And I really liked the way they played off each other when he said, "You make the call. Do you want to write her up or not?" And I thought that was a smart call, because it showed how human they were, and it wasn't necessary in that sense. I don't think there's anything they could have done, Duty Ron, to change the outcome of what was coming.
Well, you need a complainant to go forward with charges. So even if the officer pushed it and did arrest her without a complainant, the case can't go forward. So
that's what they
can't
said.
just right. So without someone signing an affidavit, that's how the criminal justice system works here in the United States. But again, they were able to make that decision based on their interviews, and it was an hour and change that they had this interaction with them.
Yeah.
Many people argue, why did they let her go in the van and didn't give her the hotel room? under the
He was the victim.
right, under the Domestic Violence Victims Act, the social
Yeah.
services that's provided, that's a social service program for battered women and battered men. They can only provide a hotel room for the victim.
Battered. Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it's, you can argue after the fact that she should have been the victim and he not. That's not how it presented. That's not how she, you know, there are two adults here. It's not like, you know, the police can beat the answer out of her and tell her,
No,
you got to tell her.
You know, it's like, but something I said at the beginning too, which is that these still are kids, you know, and I think this, you know, not having the tools that, you know, even the communication tools. And you said something that really is spot on, which is, look, the reality is that, you know, we can look at this and we can say whatever, but sometimes the abuse and the scars are not on the outside. And I think that, you know, we can't always just say this is the one who did it. I mean, obviously the cops had to, that's what they see. However, you know, my dad used to say, because as you know, he jumped on D-Day, and he used to say, you know, when I look at veterans and that, my dad used to say, hey, some of us don't have scars on the outside, you know? And I think that really opened up the humanity for me of, you know, this girl had scars on the inside and she was working with them. She was really, I think, and the tragedy for me about Gaby is that I think if we had given her a couple more years, I think this girl could have been someone who that really, I mean, obviously she touched us, but I think there's more to learn from her loss. And I think that's where I jump into these kinds of things. You know me, Deuteron. I mean, like, I just feel like we've got to, it's not so much because we looked at the police, that was well done. We looked at what was the issue? At the end of the day, it's that this young lady didn't have enough going on for her. And I mean this in a very supportive way. She didn't have the tools to say, hey, this is painful. I don't like when you talk to me that way. Because she just, you could see she just would get upset. And that moment when the cop said, why'd you hit him? What? The cop says, what'd you say? It was like she said, well, he was telling me to stop, calm down. And so I kept hitting him. And that's kind of that is the reaction of somebody who's abused.
Right. What we didn't get to see from that body cam footage is the countless times that she was spoken to by other officers who didn't have the body cam engaged. So when our officer who walked away on the phone to talk to his supervisor walked away from the location to speak, there was officers there engaging her in conversation. And I would say at least 3, perhaps maybe even 4 officers talked to her, including the 2 females that were there, and probably asked her, hey, come on, you know, you could tell me, you know, if he's really hurting you, just let us know, we'll lock him up. There might have been that conversation that none of us got to hear, but it's so easy for us to now, after we see the tragic result of what happened, and now we don't have a crystal ball as police officers to say, this is a potential murderer that we have here. This is a situation that could spark into a murder. They don't have that advantage. They have to take it for what they see, for face value, and everybody is different. Not any 2 people would come to the same conclusion here.
But when you looked at that, though, would you say, and from my heart, I looked at that the entire stop, and I said they did a great job. Now I'm wondering, like, when you looked at
I thank you. I mean, I know you were going to ask me that, and that's why I called in. I mentioned it on my channel. I felt they handled the situation well with what they had to deal with. I didn't hear the 911 call that came out today where he told the dispatch in no uncertain terms that he smacked her. Now, if that happened here in New York, I would have locked her up, and I would have definitely wound up cross-complaining them, because once I would have hooked the Gaby up, she would have probably said, whoa, no, he was hitting me first, and then I hit him back. Stories change once the clicks come out, when the handcuffs come out. So I would say that I definitely would have made an arrest, and I asked Sergeant Bill Cannon, who's a retired 27-year Yeah. So Bill, I asked him privately in a conversation, what would you have done if I called you to the scene? And he said, I would have made you lock her up, you know, to cover our ass, because if we would have let them go and then something bad happened after that, it's on us. So that's how it's done here in New York. And remember, we see millions of domestic violence calls. I don't know what goes on out there in in Moab.
Remember, it's in the middle of nowhere, right? So how?
Right,
I don't know. Joe Bob beat his wife, so yeah, go home, sleep it off. I don't know how they handle it.
We're not allowed to do that. We're under Domestic Violence Act after O.J. Simpson. We have mandates where if there is just a slight bruising or even a mention of a slap or a hit, it's a must arrest. Right. So, but New York is different than Utah. I'm not here to judge what their rules and their regulations are.
I think that's the big thing is that, I was just talking about that tonight because I was really listening, just with that intuitive ear to what was being said and what each of them said. And, for two people living in a van, when I saw the back of that van, when they showed a shot of it, it just looked like there was stuff in there. There wasn't like, it was not set up as a place that they're living. I mean, I don't know about you, but I would have been nutty after reading something like that.
I watched, as you know, I'm very thorough at what I do. I watched it all. I watched all of the social media posts from their Instagram. I looked at some of her Pinterest. I looked at some of all of the stuff that she posted. Right. And there was some video of them in the middle of a really nice location, and she was preparing a really nice meal, and a sandstorm came. It was wind, and she made a comment like, when we have a really beautiful location where we're going to have dinner outside and plans change, this is what happens in van life. And they said it so casual and so nice, and so, but then they showed video from the back of the van, and they were literally eating on top of each other. There was nowhere to go. He was laying on the floor and she was laying this way, and the food was over to the right. There was really, so
it wasn't set up. There wasn't a plan. And the thing is, that's what I was saying, is that these are kids,
Right. And they were only at it over a little bit over a month. They had a plan for a 4-month, they had it for a 4-month journey, supposedly ending up in Portland, Oregon at a friend's home. But they lasted a month and a week, I think it was, out on the road.
4th, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the date that I saw.
Right. Yeah. They left July 2nd. They left July 2nd, right from Blue Point, Long Island, right here, just local to me. Again, everything all transpired. August 12th was the police stop, so it was just a short period, over a month.
You're right. Yeah. And one thing I want to say, though, because something that just came up on the chat was that he had to have learned something about the behavior, or abusing women. And I think that what that was, at least what I witnessed with him, was he was really he was afraid of being left. She was afraid of being left. And so I think it's that kind of if I break you down enough where you think you need me, I think that was we know that's the MO of abuser, right? Because we want to, and there was another thing that I wanted to ask about, Ron, if there was ever confirmation on her being pregnant, because I didn't see that. I mean,
I've spoken with her family, not on the phone, but by text message. I spoke to her mom. I spoke with her stepdad, Jimmy, and I spoke to her uncle. And I never asked them that, but at no time did they ever say that she was expecting. So I would have to say be careful, because there's so many things.
Oh, that was a rumor. I had heard that. That's why I didn't put it out there. I wasn't, because I was like, I don't know. Somebody had asked me and I said, I don't know. But I think that will, what we're going to see in the autopsy, in your opinion, what do you think that we can expect from that?
They're going to rely heavily on the toxology reports. They're going to rely heavily on any type of bruising or any type of trauma. They're going to look for, obviously, stab or gunshot wounds. It's a very thorough process. I'm going to have Barbara Butcher, the chief medical examiner from New York City. She's going to chime in after the autopsy report is released. Now, I don't know. They're saying that they're going to do the autopsy tomorrow. I don't know if that report will be made available due to the feds being involved, and we could be seeing federal indictments against federal not indictments, search warrants warrant of arrests. My head's going all over the place. We could see federal warrants of arrest being issued for Brian and or his family. There was a search warrant. There was a search warrant that was conducted tonight at his sister's home as well.
I saw that.
That's additional stuff. And once the wheels of justice start going and the FBI is involved, they're the premier law enforcement agency of the land, so they're going to be doing this, dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And again, people get confused on how the wheels of justice work. Once you have a recovery of a human body, now you have a lot more to go on as opposed to having to look for pieces of the puzzle. That's the major part of the puzzle, because that human remains, which will be identified positively probably tomorrow. That'll be the only thing that we'll get to be Gaby Petito. That gives them a treasure trove of investigatory evidence from that examination.
And a quick question for you. I mean, there was a thing like where he flew home to move their stuff out of storage or something. That just seemed really odd to me.
That was never verified that he flew home. That's,
again, I was like wondering about that, because it was kind of like, and then my other question is like, how far can he be at this point? I mean, I kind of have my own thinking about it, but I mean, if you're in the house, come on, wouldn't your parents know if you left?
Yeah. I don't think that he's obviously in that home, and I don't think that they went into that shed in the backyard to look for him. I think they went into that shed and in the backyard based on information that they may have received from confidential informants or folks who might have witnessed him go to that yard. It could be a whole host of different reasons why they went to that shed. But what they did do is they did get a federal search warrant from a judge that gave them the right under the federal law to go and look at everything in that home. And they removed several huge boxes of items. We don't know what they were, but I'm going to guess that electronic home computers, laptops, iPads, parents' computers. Don't forget there's the mom, dad, and I don't know what the family dynamic is there. I don't know how many other people live at that home, but whoever lives there, all of their devices were taken into custody and seized, and that will be straight to the Quantico the lab for the FBI, and they'll go over the computer forensics and pull out everything, every kind of communication between Brian, his parents, and back and forth. So no stone's going to be left unturned. This is going to be a full tilt investigation. We even have John Walsh, who is going to be doing a special tomorrow, Wednesday night. He's going to be doing a special, and he's going to be doing an expose on Brian. So
I'm looking forward to that, because I did some, I did a little digging, and I started to look at it, and I was like, you know what, Nancy Grace is going to do it. Let them all do it. And I kind of backed away from that, because I felt like, Ron, I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing about this is, what do we need to know to educate girls like Gaby, to educate, and young men too, who I don't know, I don't want to be unfair in the sense that I know something went down, right? But I mean, what do we have to look for in people? And I think, somebody like Gaby going forward, and I said this to you when we talked about the Watts case, 2 years ago, was, what did we learn from it? And that's what I want to say, is that what can we learn by helping young women and to spot the signs? And it's not just physical, that kind of put down is, boy, that is just,
right. Well, You bring up a great point, Tori, because there's always room for improvement in every aspect of law enforcement, in every aspect of
Life.
the criminal justice system. So I think that there should be a call, not just based on this case, but based on the tens of thousands of battered women cases that wind up with either the woman or man killed.
Right.
And more times than not, it's the women who get the brunt of the raw end of the stick. So I think that there's should be an open dialogue between law enforcement professionals, the executives within all of law enforcement across the country, where you can have some more intensive training in recognizing some signs of battered woman syndrome, and to maybe take extra steps to. I didn't see a supervisor come on the scene in that car stop. I know that they made phone calls. I know he made phone calls to. It sounded like a supervisor, so maybe they do it like that there. But over by us, a supervisor has to come on the scene to physically and to see with his own eyes what's in front of him. They're not going to just listen to us on the phone. So in my department, which is the largest police department in the United States, we have supervisor come to actually see what's in front of him, because no two people see the same things. And that's what I felt good about is when I saw all of the different officers there. And I thought that the bearded guy who appeared to be like the senior guy, he was the one at the end that said, hey, it's yours. Because technically what happens is whoever conducts the car stop, it's their job. It's their call. So he said to him, hey, you do what you got to do. And I'm sure that he gave him a conversation and spoke to him maybe privately about that, about what he had in front of him, because he spoke to Gaby quite a bit, that officer with the beard. And I want to just address something too. Some people were saying some negative stuff about, and not just here, but in a lot of chats, and even in my own, is some people were saying like, the officer shouldn't have got personal with him. They shouldn't have made the correlations between his wife taking a shower and doing it.
I think that was
right. So I want to make a statement about that. I felt that there was nothing inappropriate about it. I think he was still right to the very end when she was walking away with her keys is when he said that. He still was trying to make her feel better about being on her own. Okay, again, remember, these are two people who decided to do the van life and go out on their own. So, you can argue and say, hey, they shouldn't let a 22-year-old woman be by herself, but they were out in the middle. They were already in the nowhere. What I'm saying is those officers could have told her, hey, you don't have to go out in the middle of the wilderness. There's a campsite or a campgrounds where you can park.
They did. Right, I think that was off camera, but I do think they did give it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So they didn't probably advise her, hey, go deep into the
woods by yourself
and find a real remote place way off the beaten path. They were probably worried as well, and they told her, hey, go right up over here. It's lit. It's a safe area. Wait till the morning when he gets out and calmer heads prevail. So again, everybody perceives things differently, and I saw that as officers who took that extra step to just make her feel just a tad bit better. Now, again, I respect everyone's opinion, and I feel like people are going to say, "Oh no, I thought that was wrong." And you know what? I understand.
I want to interject here, because I do think I agree with you in the sense that I think what I said early on, and I don't know if you heard this part, but what I talked about is the idea that their dialogue was great. The issue that I had was that these were kids who immediately were looking at these men, right, these officers, as authority figures. And so for me,
they were scared shit. They were scared shit of them. They were both scared.
They were both scared. They were really scared. And so I wondered if, and this is what I said early on, is that, if there couldn't have been just something where it's like, are you going to be okay? Or, like when he was talking to Brian, because he was talking about his life, which I think is great. Treating him like an equal. That was great. And I think that I would have liked and I think this is thinking that coming back, looking at how are we talking to these new generations? I mean, Judy, Ron, these are different people today. The kids today, I think that we have to honor that what they know and what they don't know is different from us, and they don't understand some of that dialogue. So even saying, hey, listen, my wife, blah, 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 blah. But, look, you're young. How you doing? What's going, something where they could kind of include the person, because I felt like Brian was like, yeah, because he's so scared.
Again, I want to add on to what you're saying, because it's a great point. But police psychology, right? In social science in the police academy, you were taught to connect with your complainant, right? And the way that they can connect with their complainant witness and other witnesses is we need to be able to let folks know that, hey, we're human just like you. We have arguments with our wives, and sometimes when our wives get mad, a cold shower or a warm shower helps them out. Helps everybody to calm down. I've been told.
I thought that was great, though, Judy Ron. I want to be really clear. And somebody said on the chat, 16 is a kid, 23 is not. And I think that we have to look at this as, 16 can be an adult and 23 can be a child. So it wasn't so much the age. And I think that what you're saying is right on. Like, the cops were being human. They were telling, talking. And I think what I'm saying is it makes perfect sense to kind of get that humanity from the cops. I got it. What I was observing was these kids, right? They're doing adult things that they don't understand. And I wonder if there's a way, and I don't know, I don't have the answer today, but I know that we'll know more going forward, right? We're going to know more about this case. And I think that what I would like as a takeaway is, how can we do better for the younger generation? And that doesn't mean cops. It doesn't mean, it means all of us. It means, I think they did a great job, those cops, honestly. I really do. And I think that there's a way we can do better. And somewhere along the line, I said this early on, thank God they had more than one 911 call. Do you realize people are calling up and saying something? I mean, look at Kitty Genovese. People, we can look at things where people just, nope, don't get involved. And people are involved now. And that's great.
Well, we say this a lot in New York City: if you see something, say something. And this is a prime example of somebody seeing something and somebody saying something. The current day and age, the current generation in this day and age, everything is done through text messaging. I mean, my son could be upstairs and I could be in the basement, and he's, instead of coming down to talk to me, he's going to send me a text. Hey, Dad, can you help me change my oil, or whatever. So it's not like when you and I grew up, where we had to either write letters or pick up the phone and say, hey,
and you had to know where the person was. I mean, we went out in cliques, right? So my parents were like, don't go unless John is there, Billy's there, and Sue's there. Okay. We didn't wander. We didn't get that.
Yeah, we could see, people in the chat are speculating about her OCD, what she had. We know that she said that to the officer, I'm OCD. She said it herself. Listen, my wife's OCD. If I leave this bottle, there you go. If I leave this bottle on the counter and don't put it in our recycling bin in the morning, I'm going to get shit for this. So I know to get rid of this. But that's something that she likes to have a clean place. She likes everything in place.
That, right? Because look, absolutely. That's the thing. That's a skill set. I hate to say it, but when people don't have that skill of like, I don't know why she's complaining, I'm just leaving a bottle. Well, move the freaking bottle. Like it's
right. I come to understand, and that's part of a relationship. And unfortunately, the younger generation now is so desensitized to everybody's feelings. They don't even have conversations with each other. They have conversations through messaging, but those two were so close. They're in that close quarters. There was no room to go, and if they had an argument, to go and ignore each other and then start texting each other. It was either go out of the van and walk into the wilderness, or butt heads. And I think a lot of that was going on leading up to this August 12th incident. Things were not honky-dory with them, and it was a buildup like a volcano, and it erupted. Now, it could be argued that this police call not because she made the call, not because he made the call, because a good, honest civilian saw something that wasn't right and called, could have took an erupting volcano and made it erupt and explode. We don't know. We're not in this guy's head. We don't know what happened, and we will know in time when the investigation unfolds.
And I think something you're saying too, and I want to wrap up in a moment, but I want to just say that, at the end of the day, we don't know what their mental issues were, if any. I mean, I want to say that I really look at this as a communication problem.
Right.
And I wrote, I think it was on your timeline, somebody's timeline, where I wrote, I wonder what it's going to be, tomorrow with them. In other words, this was a break. I don't care what anybody says. When you have something happen like that, like you're embarrassed, you're afraid, your true colors have been shown. So, there's something here that broke that relationship. So you can't be cited, if you will, for violence on either side and not have the trust is broken, is what I'm trying to say, Duty Ron. Once that trust is broken, it's very hard.
It's never the same. It's never the same. It's hard to get it back.
It's mature people that can do it. And these were not two mature people. And, I know we can classify them as adults, but, hell, my dad at 22 was he jumped on D-Day and was killing Germans. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me, Nazis. I want to be clear. But this is not that. This is van life, And so we have to give these kids more of a background with getting away from this.
Right. Yeah,
because
absolutely.
It is only in the dialogue. And I want to say that, when I remember when I was younger, and you probably remember this, you're sitting in the living room with your parents, and they have friends over, different political things, and they're yelling at each other. And then it's like, oh, it's time for dinner. Okay. Everybody go sat down. It was over.
Done.
Because you see, we understood that it didn't define us. What it was opinions and thinking and raging. And then we were like, oh, you made the turkey again. I love that. It was just, and so I think that because we have this background, we can't assume that others know how to be mature and have good communication, between each other. So anyway, I am thrilled that you jumped on. So everybody knows, I did send you the link so you could come in.
I want to say I would have been on earlier, but I had a conference call with EquiSearch. So I'm now the law enforcement liaison with that search group. So I'm always on the phone with them. So phone calls came up. I was on with 3 people, and I said, I got to get going. Tori Hartman's live. I want to go on and say hi to her, and I want to come on. But I want to just say something to your chat. By a show of hands here in the chat, how many of us, by putting maybe a 1 or just a hand mark in the chat, are excited to see this young lady back? I will put a 1. Can I do it? I think I can. Can I do that? Let's see if I can do it. Boom! I was able to do it.
Oh, I got a 1. Right. I didn't see it yet. Oh, thank you, Miranda.
Yeah, there it goes.
Yeah,
it's so exciting to see you back. I'm so happy that you're back on the grid. We were all at one point. Yeah, we were all worrying about you at one point, and I know that you and I kept in somewhat communication. So it was good.
We did, and I want to say to everybody, I think it would be great to have a conversation that you and I will have about that time and what I learned and where I'm at now. And I have my Be Kind shirt on, you guys. So
I love it.
It's really I'm just getting this. People became so mean to each other that I kind of, Todd said 2. Todd said, oh, double. Okay, great. So
listen, I see a lot of number 1s and a couple of double number 2s. So people 2 number 1s. So it's just a pleasure to have you back on, and I hope to see you more.
It's great to see everybody. It's great to see you. And as you know, I'm doing the NYPD thing, and I have the opening in the can. So I'm really excited to talk to you about some of the thoughts I want to do with that. And I'll share that with you when it's edited. Oh my gosh, I'm doing stuff. And then I did get the full Chris Watts. I am not doing Shanann's family. I'm not doing the Rusceks. I'm only doing the criminal side, and I have his family tree dating back to 1700. And
Wow.
yeah. And when I got it, I'll show it to you at some point, literally, and I'll say this to you and everybody, that tree, it took 12 feet. No, excuse me, 16 feet of a rolled out paper, right? With,
Wow.
and I'm not kidding, there's like so many different things on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, and so I do it intuitively where I work with, what I believe is I call it multi-generational healing, and where the murders in his family, all of the things that took place, and those hidden agreements. So it's going to be really interesting to see this, and that's where I was starting to work with stuff, and that's why it's taken me so long. But I'm really excited to start some of this stuff because I think it's going to be really fun, and
I love it.
I think who we are now is we really do need to, and I will wrap up by saying I am so honored to have gotten to meet you early on when we both were starting, really. I mean, you had a little bit more on me because you're doing Periscope, you're doing a lot of, but I want to say I am thrilled to see how well you're doing. I'm thrilled to just call you friend. And I got to say, this guy's the real deal. So I'm just, pleased as punch to have him.
The feelings are so mutual, and that. We could say it for the audience, but you and I both know those feelings are mutual, and I look forward to seeing much more of you, and also having you come on as a guest with me as well. Because I was a guest with you when you made when you came, and you were here doing some book stuff, and I came and met you at the hotel.
At the tarot convention.
Yeah, we did a great little live right in the hotel lobby, so that was pretty cool.
And it was great early on, and I remember this, everybody, for those of you that know Judy Ron, I remember I'd said, you got to go follow this guy, and he was like, he had hundreds of people that went over to him, and he was like, who is this woman? Why is she telling people to follow me? And I was like, this guy's the real deal. So anyway, I just want to say that the thing about, and somebody said my head hurts about the Watts family. I got to be honest with you, my head hurts too, and I didn't want to do another thing on it. And this case is the first case I feel, Judy Ron, in a long time that it has grabbed the soul of the nation, because it is a different kind of abuse again. It is the hidden abuse that we don't see every day, that we need to continue to talk about. So that said, you guys, you've got it going on. Judy Ron, good to see you. Good to see everybody. Please share, tell your friends, come down. Remember, Duty Ron, DUTYRON Duty Ron, at Duty Ron is his channel. You won't be sorry for a minute if you go over there. Please, I want to subscribe, my little subscribe pillow. And I promise next time I'll have Gavin on. He's really tired. So, he's had a long day. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ron. See you guys soon. Much love. Bye for now.